you okay?
I'm fine. Rain. It's raining.
You're right. Wasn't it still sunny when we went into the building? And there shouldn't be any active trials today. How strange.
Now that I think of it, on the day my father was convicted of murder, it was also raining.
Rain.
What is it? Did you think of something?
I don't know, did I? Your father's case, was he outside when it happened?
Yeah, he was outside. It was uncovered and the rain could fall there. Why? Do you think the rain could have affected the crime scene? That thought has occurred to us before. We've even expanded the search area to try to account for that, but didn't find anything of value.
But there was something you didn't know at the time, that people could dissolve into water?
Oh?
The fact that people can be turned into water.
So you're saying that the true murderer could have been turned into water and then got washed away with the rain?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if that's what had happened, then no one would have believed your dad, even if he explained what he saw to the authorities.
I really think I found a true genius for a partner. You're completely right. How did I not connect the dots earlier?
But the problem is, how would you even prove that when there's no evidence that you can physically find?
All right, let's go to Poisson. With this new lead in mind, we'll get to the bottom of my father's case for sure.
I don't know how you plan on getting to the bottom of your father's case.
Yeah, we're gonna make progress for sure this time.
I guess you've got to look into the best friend that he murdered and his history and who would have wanted to have killed him and why.
Do you want to go with me now? Or do you want to head over by yourself later?
Well, I suppose I can head over now. We should go while the idea's still fresh.
Great. Let's go then.
Do I have the waypoint in Poisson?
The
Yes.
sun is out.
I do.
Our work's done for the day. Shall we
Okay.
take a stroll?
We shall. Just trying to find a hydroculus. Hey, bird. I'm feeling it's in here somewhere. Problem is I don't know where. It's directly underneath me, but how does one get directly underneath me? How do I get directly beneath me? It's a thick wall. Clearly missing something. Don't know what though. Don't know how to fix that problem. Again, I wish these oculi would tell you higher or lower. And that doesn't go back on itself either. It all just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. I have to have missed something, surely. But I haven't. I don't see anything I possibly could have missed. Yet it is right beneath me somewhere. I don't understand. This is under here? Nope. It's not under here, which is the last bit of hope I had. As I said, there's no under here. It's not in a bush or something, is it? No, this is the wrong direction. I am completely bamboozled. Ah! Well, that explains a lot. Is it quicker to climb or quicker to go around? Probably quicker to climb. Hey, Hinderman. Diagonal climbing. This never ends well for me. Is it a boy? Or a buoy? I suppose if you're American. To be fair, that looks like it's probably the correct pronunciation, but we pronounce it boy. Things are about to get a bit dicey. Ooh. Maybe we should be walking, Classing. What's the walking button? That one. Because you're just going to shoot off in some direction you're not supposed to go in. You're really good at that. Though I really might point out that your shoes would have 0 purchase on this metal surface. And you should technically be sliding right off it. Gosh, it has to be on the thinnest piece of metal, doesn't it? Oh well, that's what walking's for. Boom, nailed it. Okay. Ah! Oh, please don't kill me.
Whoa, what a huge ship! Why would a ship be anchored at a place like this?
How did it get here? Even with high tide. I don't see how it would get into this little hole.
There's no need to be so surprised. While it may look like a ship, it's actually Spina di Rosula's headquarters.
I'm not stupid, I at least figured that much out.
My father was the one who asked for it to be built like this. Perhaps our taste in
it
exterior
was just
design
physically
is the
built.
only thing we
Okay.
occasionally had in common. A gigantic and glamorous ship embodies discovery, opportunity, ambition, and conquest. It symbolizes Spina di Rosula's bright and limitless future.
I think I'm starting to get why I like it.
And Paimon thought you were bluffing when you said Spina di Rosula had a glorious past. Paimon was confused why a group with such a history would live in the sewers. But now that Paimon has seen this ship for herself, she's been convinced.
Well, Poisson is where Spina di Rosula began, after all. It's our main base, our home.
Yvette, engineer. Hey, kitty. Mind you don't get hit. Tools aren't living people. They don't know where they're going. How do you do? Thanks for the warning. No issue. You're not getting hurt is good enough. How do you do? Oh, youngster with manners. Looks like you aren't one of those block-headed spinner newbies. I've worked with those chummy idiots way too often to maintain a good temper. Of course, not that my temper was ever all that good. May I ask who you are? Right, thought to introduce myself. I'm the technical advisor to the Spina di Rosula. I might be old, but my hands and brain still work just fine. Now, don't let the headaches get with the greenhorns who keep breaking... Don't let the headaches I get with greenhorns. Okay, I get with your context, yep. Who keep breaking things for you. I very much enjoy my work here at Spina. Back when I was at the Fontaine Research Institute, I quit on my own. Too hard working with people with my crappy temper. I just realised I still haven't been there. I should really go there. As it turned out, that was a smart decision. Otherwise, you might have had to find my bones at the bottom of the sea. Things are different here. Doesn't matter if you're 80 or 8. I transposed, apologies. So long as you've the ability, there's a place for you to use it. How fortunate. Yes, perhaps this is how fate is telling me you're on the right path. But as a former scientist, I have to say this is all too abstract. In other words, the right path in an orderly society should be one where people with proper capabilities gain recognition. Well, I'm assuming we just have to get to the ship, right? Casal? Porta? Ah, there's no path here. It's okay, I shall just make my own. How do we enter the ship, by the way? Not too sure. We'll soon find out. Oh, is that a gangplank? It's a gangplank. Reggae and Alcina. If you hadn't told me, I would never have known that he was in this line before. Heh, I mean, it's not completely unreasonable. Doing dirty business doesn't mean you don't accumulate experience, right? Now he's changed jobs to some sort of financial consultant, mentioning a few investment trends to the boss every so often for some easy mora. Pretty sweet deal. Agreed. Speaking of which, I'm reminded of some kid who wasn't able to join the Spina Dorsula. Had a silver tongue he did, with no real ability. Lately, I've heard that he's gotten mixed up in another faction, and he's been walking with a real swagger since. Ooh, that's dangerous behaviour, ignoring the polite pneumonia like that. Reckon he'll be invited to sing at the opera soon enough. You think it could be up there?
Yep. They might have it
Or could it be down there? Wait, this serves literally no purpose. Oh. No? Does it flow through? Probably flows through. Okay, well, I don't think it's down there. I have no reason to believe it is. So I'm gonna believe it's up there somewhere. And I bet you I'm not gonna look because it's gonna put me straight into the animation, the cutscene. I could just climb this. And then I wouldn't get janked into the cutscene. Maybe, if we're lucky. Are these stars the symbol of the Spina di Rossilla? Oh. Oh, she climbed it. I was like, oh, well, that's the end of that. No, she climbed it. There it is. I see it. I see it. There you are. Thank you. Now let's not die into this cutscene. We're very good at doing that. Hey, Melis. Yeah.
Melus, we're back!
Whatever.
Apologies for the wait, demoiselle, and our most important partners. You said before that you still had some business at the court. What brings you back to Poisson so quickly?
Our business at the court was very brief.
About that. It's because my partner here reminded me of something really important. You see, what if my father's case had something to do with water from the primordial sea? You still remember, right, Melus? On that night, it was raining?
Yes, the case was quite similar to that of Mr. Linney's. Both were what you'd call impossible murders.
Could the mastermind be the same person?
Could you tell us a bit more about what happened before?
Yeah, of course. Many years ago, something called synth began to gain popularity in Poisson.
The drug.
At a glance, it was a kind of drink that could excite your mood and produce many pleasant hallucinations.
It's a drug. I call it blend, or so does Starfield.
Wait! Didn't that guard guy who turned into water also mention that the primordial water could be used to produce some kind of potion?
Yes, he did. Considering what we know now, it's almost certain that synth is created using water from the primordial sea.
So a lot of you from Fontaine have consumed synth?
If you drink synth for an extended amount of time, you'll suffer many side effects, such as losing the ability to focus or control your emotions.
Yeah, that sounds normal for drug addiction.
And if you were to stop drinking it completely, you'll experience flashes of paranoia and anxiety while lacking energy to do anything. It's an extremely dangerous substance.
And that's called withdrawal.
As he oversaw Poisson, my father was compelled to put a stop to synth abuse and called for a complete ban of it.
Boss's uncompromising attitude incurred the synth vendor's wrath, but no matter how much they threatened or bribed him, he refused to yield.
And good for him.
Not only that, Boss became determined to find the mastermind behind the synth operation and put an end to the problem once and for all.
Yes, but the enemy was very cunning. So he could never get anything out of the dealers, all of whom only sold the stuff and weren't privy to the rest of the operation. Recognizing that, my father decided to contact the dealers in secret and cultivate personal relationships with them. Finally, He was able to convince someone to become his informant. The man's name was Jacques. He felt greatly ashamed about his work after seeing many families destroyed by synth abuse. That night, my father hosted a banquet at his countryside estate. He planned to meet up and exchange information with Jacques over some food. But then, we heard 2 gunshots from the courtyard. We raced to the scene and found my father, still holding a gun, and Jacques, who was already dead on the ground.
Huh? How did that happen? Aren't they on the same side?
Sounds just like Lenny's case, doesn't it? In both cases, the culprit seemed obvious, but neither appeared to have any motive at all. Looking back on it, though, I now believe the most important clue was something we all overlooked at the time. There were pieces of clothing left at the scene.
And people just ignored that? I mean, yeah, sure, they didn't have a logical explanation for it at the time, but that seems like a pretty key piece of information. So they could have belonged to a man, someone who got dissolved. But wouldn't your father have... Oh, your father's probably afraid of sounding crazy.
Precisely. It's all thanks to you that I made the connection now. Back then, we all just thought they were some costumes that Jacques used to disguise himself at the banquet.
But wouldn't they be written down in the case file that Neuvillette would have? To be fair, they're court cases that he has, but surely all evidence would have been registered. And therefore, the extra clothes would have been registered?
But, considering it now, it's almost certain that they belong to a third person at the scene. With one extra person, we'll also need to reconsider why the 2 shots were fired.
It's possible that either the father shot one and the water dude shot another, or the water dude shot both of them. I mean, did you look at the gun to see if he'd shot anything? Did you look at the gun to see if a shot was missing, a bullet was missing? That seems like a pretty obvious step. Maybe his gun did shoot. It's possible. But then, you could have gotten the bullet out of Jacques' body, and then you could run, like, a check to see if the bullet came from the same type of gun that Callus was holding. These seems like all very basic steps that they seem to have missed out on. Maybe your father got into an argument with Jacques, but it's also possible that a third person was to blame.
You're right. We still don't know what happened. But my intuition tells me that we're on the right track to figuring it all out. I'm finally headed towards the truth.
I'm wondering if these people who turn into water can actually be reconstituted. Maybe. It's just a thought. That maybe
Jacques
turning
was
to
an
water isn't
empathetic
permanent.
man who was infinitely remorseful for his past actions. It's unlikely that he turned on Boss with 0 warning. I think this third person is probably the key to the full truth. On that note, however, even though this will not please you, demoiselle, as you're and your father's butler, I must still offer a word of warning. Our opponent is insidious and cruel.
So that means we should just not
They're
investigate.
extremely difficult to deal with, and Boss has already lost his life trying to bring them to justice.
Well, guess what? I can't turn to water, so I'm fine continuing.
Even though Spina de Rosula has lost most of its former glory, Poisson has welcomed a new time of peace, and we have been allowed to live out our lives.
Side note, how loud must it be here to live here? You've got multiple waterfalls leading down to this particular basin. The echo of the thundering water must be so horrible to live next to.
There is no need to follow your father's path. It would be both wise and in line with Boss's wishes to step back and give up on the case.
If that's indeed what he wished for, then he should have told me that himself. Was I not the closest person to him? And yet, I was the one most kept in the dark.
Because he was scared for your safety?
What was the point of him dying without sharing any of the secrets he knew? Did he manage to protect anything in the end?
I do have to say it's a bit odd. Him dying over this. It's a bit weird. We're clearly missing something important.
Synth is still here. Callus the Unfaithful
This is the first I've heard of
still
it.
his epithet. And Spina di Rosula is barely getting by. Nothing has changed. Did he think I'd just accept his meaningless death and live out my life just as meaninglessly? I've never accepted that. Ever. Not since that day, and certainly not now. I want to find out the real answer for everyone's sake. For the missing girls, for the victims, and for myself.
Navia.
This is indeed the best moment to act. Your partner appears to be quite reliable, and more importantly, demoiselle, I think you're also ready to take this on.
So you do know something else, Malus.
Yes, I do. In fact, even before that banquet, Boss already knew of the connection between Synth and the serial disappearances case.
How did he make the connection?
But what drove all the tensions to the boiling point was the revelation that you, demoiselle, had been selected as the next target to disappear.
And he thought that by getting himself killed, he could save her?
What?
Boss also didn't tell you that he
That's the missing
had
piece of
been
information.
diagnosed with a rare illness. The doctors told him that he had no more than 5 years left to live.
That's the piece of information we were missing. Now it makes sense.
And the serial disappearances case caused him great anxiety. 5 years was nowhere near enough time to resolve this long-standing conflict. But once he passed away, all the danger would pass on to you. Knowing all of this, he decided to use one final intimidation tactic before his death. He claimed to have already gotten his hands on some key incriminating evidence for the other side, and even told some members of Spina di Rosula about the details. But as long as you remained safe, he would not share the evidence with the public. If something were to happen to you, then he and all those he told would immediately expose all they knew about Synth and the disappeared victims.
But she was just technically attacked with the tea that was meant to have dissolved her. So shouldn't that information now be known to the public? And who are these people who know the truth? Do you know more than you're letting on?
Right. So nobody would be able to get off scot-free.
So can you find someone to tell us these facts?
As we've seen, Boss's tactic has worked. Even though Boss has been gone for a long time, the other side has not tried to take Demoiselle's life.
Except they have with the tea.
No, I don't believe it. He never appeared to look sick to me.
That's not the... Can we focus on the actual point here, Navia? That's not the point. And you don't have to look sick to be sick. What a dumb comment to make. They did just try to take her life with the primordial sea water in her tea. Are we just going to overlook this fact? An attempt has been made. The deal's broken. Let the truth sally forth. But we're going to focus on the fact that, my father didn't look terminally ill, so he couldn't have been ill.
No father wants their daughter to see them weak and haggard, especially someone as proud as Boss. To him, dying in a duel and suffering lasting dishonor as the unfaithful was still far preferable than losing face in front of his daughter.
So he chose to die in silence, so that he could protect me.
I'm afraid you're not understanding this correctly, demoiselle. What Boss wanted to hand to you was not a parasol, but a sword. If Boss's spirit could hear you telling me that you want to find the answer for the sake of everyone involved, I'm sure he'd be extremely proud.
That fool. Couldn't he have just given it to me straight?
I do somewhat agree with that, though.
No. He might have set
See?
up everything
The tears.
precisely because he never thought I'd be able to understand him.
We're gonna milk this tear animation for all it's worth.
Is that the amount of confidence he had in me? And what if I was never able to make it to where I am now?
He gave her the choice to live how you want.
Yeah. I suppose that's true. With the way he'd set things up, if I had wanted, I could have just lived out my life without a care in the world.
I mean, not true. You're running into financial hardship, so I mean, you'd have some cares.
But thankfully, he rarely talked to me about complex matters, and thus understood little of me as a person.
Wow,
In this case,
that's insulting.
he really didn't need to give me an easy way out.
That kind of hurts, knowing that your father never really knew you. Ooh.
Malus, what was the key evidence that he shared with you?
It's the location where synth is produced.
Ooh.
Essentially, it's the enemy's headquarters. When he was threatening the enemy, Boss didn't share the specifics of the incriminating evidence he found. But if you want to use it against the enemy, you'll still have to take several things into consideration.
Why? If we know where the place is, can't we just go storming in?
You mustn't forget that we're fighting against a mysterious and dangerous organization that's been in operation for decades.
Honey, I've been dealing with the Fatui. It doesn't scare me.
There's no telling what might be lying in wait at their headquarters. We also have no idea what kind of evidence we may be able to find inside, nor what people we may be able to capture. But a single visit to their headquarters would be tantamount to a formal declaration of war.
That you already did that when they tried to dissolve Navia?
The worst case would be that we leave empty-handed, but also open ourselves up to full retaliation.
It is what it is.
Then, in that case, why not work with the Fontaine authorities?
Well, you saw one of them dissolve during Mr. Linney's case. We have no idea just how thoroughly they may have been infiltrated.
Neverlet. Go to Neverlet. Or Clarind.
That's true. Seems my father really had no choice.
You don't need an army. You just need a select few useful people.
But things are different now. It should be a lot easier to prove the other side's guilt, now that we've connected Synth with the disappearances case.
You sound like you've put a lot of thought into this, Maloose.
I am the butler, after all. I live but to serve the boss and Demoiselle's will. I've always been willing to take on any kind of risk for your sake. But considering my relative lack of ability, I've spent my time keeping secrets, performing basic investigations, and waiting for the right time to come.
Thank you for all of that, Maloose. Have you discovered anything new in the past few years?
Let me think. One conclusion I came to was that the enemy must be quite familiar with Spina di Rosula, or at least have an informant planted here. When I announced orders to the organization's members on Demoiselle's behalf, I used to deliberately keep a few people in the dark and observe the reactions of the synth vendors.
So did you narrow it down?
If the vendors didn't change their plans, then the individuals informed of our orders must be innocent. If the vendors packed up and fled, however, then someone must have given them the news.
Is Silver one of the guilty parties?
After several rounds of testing and investigative tracing, I've narrowed the suspect list down to 3 people. The first is Florent, Spina di Rosula's senior advisor.
Huh? Florent?
Yes, surprising, isn't it?
I think all 3 will be
He
surprising.
was one of the people Boss trusted the most, which also means that he was someone who understood Boss really well. Thanks to his position within Boss's innermost circle, he always knew our upcoming plans and could thus avoid capture this whole time. There's someone else like him too. Marcel, the head of Confrérie of Cabrières.
Uncle Marcel.
What is this confrérie?
It's a guild in Poisson. Boss helped it to grow to its current size and prominence. In the beginning, they were only reselling some daily goods, but now they're one of the richest guilds around, with a lot of business connections in the city.
So, they're like a sister organization of Spina di Rosula?
Yes, you can say that. When we were fighting against the synth dealers, they provided us with plenty of support. It's a bit difficult to imagine someone using their own money to hunt down themselves.
The final suspect is Thierry, the man responsible for coordinating information between Spina di Rosula and the guards. Although the guards mostly leave us to our own devices, there are still many activities we have to report to the local authorities. Since Thierry is always in the know about our current activities, he could theoretically always plan one step ahead.
I see. These are all people who I communicate with quite regularly. To think that the enemy we've been fighting against has been right next to me all along, among those I trust the most. It's almost too hard to believe.
So now you have to tell each of them a different piece of information and see which one gets back to the enemy.
If you want to investigate them, please take every precaution to not alert the quarry. Judging from our experience, the enemy is extremely cautious.
Of course. And thank you, Maloose. You've provided us with a lot of great information.
You're too kind, my lady. I'm just doing my duty. And before I forget, proving Boss's innocence would also mean clearing him of blame in Jacques' death. After that incident, Jacques' wife and daughter were taken into the Spina's care. They still live in Poisson today. If it might help, you could also pay them a visit. I can make the necessary arrangements.
Aw, thank you so much, Maloose. You really are are the best.
Jesus, that's putting it on thick for what he's offering.
A new case awaits, my dear partner.
That it does. Leave it to me.
I hope we can work together to uncover the truth and end this case once and for all.
Callus's case records. 3 years ago, on a rainy night, banquet goers heard 2 gunshots outside the house. When they reached the scene, Callus had a gun in his hands, and Jacques had been shot and slain. Based on the investigations done then, there was no possibility that anyone else could have done the deed and escaped, and Callus was thus judged to have been the culprit. Hey kitty, aren't you pretty? Yeah, I'm talking to you.